Hello YouTubers, welcome to Big Buddha is Watching. I'm Big Buddha and today I'm on King Kong. I know in my Frankness review I said I was going to aim to get this one out on Tuesday, or at least record it on Tuesday, because there was, like it says on the disc, 13 hours of bonus features. I'd actually dispute that. I think there's much more than 13 hours on there, but it depends on your take. But I'll get onto that later. Just a couple of things before I start. With regards to my Wonder Woman review, which I did yesterday, sort of on the fly, which is why I've broken up this Peter Jackson marathon. Yeah, like I said in the review, I don't know if I'll do many of them because I don't like giving my initial thoughts, because invariably my initial thoughts on a film will change over time. You know, given a day or two to digest and process what I've seen, I don't think my initial thoughts always will correlate with my lasting impression of a film. So that might be a rare occurrence, but it was fun to do, you know, sitting in the car like that. Sorry again to Brad Jones. It was, yeah, mistakes in that one. It was Steve Trevor, not Steve Rogers. So Steve Rogers is Captain America, Chris Pine. Steve Trevor, there we go again, getting it all wrong. Steve Rogers is Chris Evans, not that one, from Captain America, and Steve Trevor is Chris Pine's character in Wonder Woman. You see that I should just try and eliminate names altogether from these reviews, because it's really where I slip up. With regards to other mistakes that I've made recently, my Forgotten Silver review, I believe I referred to Salome, the Bible story, as being an Old Testament story. It is, of course, from anyone who went to Sunday school, they'll know it's a New Testament story because it has John the Baptist in, you know. That was just me trying to sound clever. Again, something else I should probably avoid as well. Yeah, and, you know, any other errors, feel free to comment on them, and I'll try and flag them up in later reviews. So anyway, on to King Kong, which I've finally finished watching. Like I said, it's now Wednesday, and it's taken me from last Thursday to watch the whole disc. I didn't want to just look at the film. I wanted to sort of really immerse myself in it all, to give the most comprehensive review I can. So I'm just going to start off with giving my my thoughts on the film. Like I said, I had seen it before, but I don't think I'd watched it all the way through since I saw it in the cinema in Christmas 2005. So that'll be getting on for 12 years ago now, and it was good to go back and revisit, and I think, yeah, my initial reservations with the film really were the same initial reservations that I had with it back then, which is that I think it is, you do get what you pay for, really, with this film. You know, it's sold to you as a sort of roller coaster ride, monster movie with lots of thrills and spills, and on that front it does deliver. Unfortunately, there are issues I do have with the film, which kind of spoil it for me. So I'm going to split this review in half, really, and go through what I like about the film, and and then get into my problems with the film, really. So what I liked about the film, I liked the screenplay for it. Again, he's Peter Jackson's sort of co-writing with his wife Fran Walsh again, and with Philippa Boyens, who were the three screenwriters on the Lord of the Rings movies, and lately The Hobbit and The Lovely Bones, and the screenplay does kind of smack of being written by writers who have just won the Oscar for screenplay writing. It does feel more like they wanted to throw some clever erudite touches into the film rather than just concentrating on telling a coherent narrative. And for the large part, it is a coherent narrative. I say I like the screenplay. I like the thing about the film is that there is a sort of weird shift when it comes to the writing. The first act kind of feels sort of overly written. The first act is kind of is very dialogue heavy, and then about when they actually reach Skull Island and you get into the more monster movie action set piecey part of the film, the writing takes on a slightly different tone, and it's weird because you have this sort of zippy dialogue in the first act of the film, which all but disappears in the second and third act. And I don't know if this was intentional or just the nature of things. You know, the shift of the setting from 30s New York, and you get this almost sort of Howard Hawks-esque. Slipping on the names again. Howard Hawks-esque sort of screwball comedy almost dialogue, to being virtually dialogue free in the second act, and then very much in the third act as well, when they return to New York and you sort of hone in more on Kong's story and his relationship with Ann Darrow. What's interesting is that in the film, Adrian Brody plays Jack Driscoll. Can't I say names? Jack Driscoll. And in this version, unlike the previous versions, he's reimagined as a screenwriter. The theory was that Kong is the ultimate alpha male story, and to have a sort of hero adventurer type as he was in the 33 version, and in the 76 version, I think he's more of a hippie ecologist type. But to have this adventurer type go up against Kong, they thought it would be that would be the focus of the story. You know, it'd be a man-on-man story, and they really wanted to shy away from that. So they made Jack Driscoll a more of a fish out of water character, and so they made him a screenwriter. You know, someone who he's tricked by Carl Denham to coming on the SS Venture with them to Skull Island, and there's a scene early on where he's writing the film for Carl Denham, and played by Jack Black, and he hands the pages over, but he's only managed to write 12 pages, and Carl Denham says, "You've given me a beginning here, but you haven't given me a middle and an end." And I just wonder if this was a sort of Jackson apologising, because this kind of feels like, and I thought this at the time when I initially watched it, it kind of felt like they'd rushed the writing process, and they'd only really written the first third of the film, and the second and third parts of the film, they relied much more heavily on what was storyboarded and pre-visualized. So you do get this weird shift in tone. I mean, this isn't confirmed anywhere in the special features, but it was... it at least feels like that to me. I know Jackson spent the best part of a decade... Well, Jackson says repeatedly in the special features that King Kong is his favourite film, and he saw it when he was 9. So when he got to make it at age 44, I think he was, it was the culmination of a 35-year ambition. There was an aborted attempt to do the film back in 1996, so they kind of went into pre-production on the film. Just after the Frighteners, and I guess they would have been looking at a summer '98 release, and Universal balked on the idea at the time because it would have clashed with Godzilla and Mighty Joe Young. I think, which I believe I mentioned in the one of the other. I've definitely mentioned that before in one of the other videos, but. So when he finally got to make the 2005 version, it was a sort of culmination of a 35-year ambition for Jackson. But it seems a shame. I guess he wanted to get this one out after Lord of the Rings, because it only came out 2 years after Return of the King, and I one of my reservations of the film is parts of it do feel rushed, whereas Lord of the Rings, everything kind of had its time to gestate, because he spent years and years working on those films, and so every moment was kind of honed and refined and perfected in the end. Here he kind of felt he didn't have enough time in prep, and he didn't have enough time in post, particularly with some of the CGI shots. I really think this film could have benefited with maybe another 12 months of development time just to get the screenplay right, and maybe another 6 months in post just to iron out some of the ropier effects. But there you go. That's but when the writing's good in this film, it's really good and it really zips along. It's just a shame that they couldn't maintain that standard as well as they could in the Lord of the Rings movies, for example. So what else do I like? Andy Serkis. I mean, I have to really sort of single him out because the design of Kong and Kong itself, is kind of brilliantly realised in this film. The monster looks great, sounds great, feels great. I know there was some reservation back when the teaser trailer came out, because they kind of released an early image of Kong in the teaser trailer, and much like with when they did Gollum, he wasn't wholly realised when they released the first initial images of him, and the consensus was that Kong was kind of underwhelming. But I think they really nailed the look of the character by the time that the film came out, and Andy Serkis is absolutely fantastic in the role of Kong. It sounds weird to say because Andy Serkis is kind of an invisible actor. I think a lot of casual moviegoers wouldn't really realise that they've seen as many Andy Serkis's performances as they have, because he is the king of motion capture. So every time you see Andy Serkis on screen, you're really seeing a digital interpretation of his performance. He was Captain Haddock in Tintin. He's Caesar in the recent Planet of the Apes movies. He is is it General Snoke in the new Star Wars movies. He's all over the place. Oh, and of course Gollum most famously. And he's like I say, he's Kong in this, and he, like in all his performances, he really gives it his all, and because he's kind of this sort of modern day Marcel Marceau figure, the performances is all in the eyes, and that's where Kong really comes alive. Is just in the well, not just in the performance, but you need a really strong sort of ocular actor to really pull off these motion capture performances, and and so you really know what Kong's thinking at any one time, but at the same time, he doesn't anthropomorphize Kong at all. He plays it as a gorilla, a 25-foot gorilla. I know Serkis, like he really did his homework researching the role. He spent time with gorillas in the zoo, and then actually went out to Rwanda to study gorillas in the wild. And if physically he gets he gets it all right. He actually had a special suit built for when he was on set with extended arms. And the massive cranium. So he looked like a gorilla on set, and you see him on the documentaries, and he's really fierce. They do this thing where they amplify his vocal performance. So when he roars, it sounds almost like he does in the film, and it's you could believe that the actors were genuinely terrified when he was on set. And what's interesting is they didn't do the mocap performance on the set. He could have just as easily not been there at all, but he insisted on turning up in a costume just for the actors, the other actors in the film, to have something to react to. Well, and it really pays off in the other actors' performance and their interaction with Kong. Especially Naomi Watts, who has to interact with the Kong character the most in the film. And then but then later on the actual motion capture, so the actual performance that Andy Serkis gives in the film was done when principal photography finished. I mean, he's great. The character looks great, and he's really fierce. He comes across as how Kong should come across, which is a fierce beast. There's a danger with a King Kong movie that you make him too cuddly, and he's not. When Kong's on screen, he's terrifying. You totally buy that he's the alpha male that rules an island that's populated by dinosaurs, no less. You totally believe that these dinosaurs are scared of him. So he's great. I'm an apologist for Jack Black and his performance. Jack Black came into for a lot of stick, but I think that's really down to the fact that he's primarily known as a comedic actor. So an actor who's known for comedy doing serious stuff, they're going to the knives are out. Your performance is going to be far more scrutinised. Whereas I think in the film, all right, I don't think it's an Oscar-worthy performance. I'm not saying that, but it's not a terrible performance, and I think. Jack Black isn't a comedian. He's an actor who just happened to be very funny and fall into doing a lot of comedy roles. And I think had he been known more for the straight acting, I think the performance would have gone unnoticed. I think he does absolutely fine in the role of Carl Denham, the filmmaker. He looks the part. They based the character on Orson Welles, and he looked physically, he looks perfect in the role. They gave him the Orson Welles hair. I know the film's period, it's set in 1933, and I know Orson Welles, I think, would have still been a teenager in, he hadn't come to prominence, Orson Welles, at the time. But there's that, there's references to Heart of Darkness in this film. So I think the way they've treated the Carl Denham character is they've sort of latched onto a lot more sort of modern day filmmakers as reference points, like Wells and Francis Ford Coppola with Apocalypse Now, and Werner Herzog, Fitzcarraldo. there are stories of filmmakers traipsing into jungles to make real films that we've all seen and slowly going mad in there. So this film definitely has overtones of that. So yes, yeah, the two perfectly, one great performance there, one perfectly acceptable performance in my view. The Skull Island sequence in the film is like I say, it's everything you'd want and expect from a Jackson picture. It's you spend about a little over an hour of the film on Skull Island, and from the moment that you get there, it's kind of a non-stop roller coaster ride. It's set piece and action scene and chase scene after chase scene. With admittedly, some are more successful than others. The stampede, the dinosaur stampede chase, which was originally going to be part of the '96 film. It is a little far-fetched. One of the problems really with the Skull Island sequence for me is that the film kind of loses me when characters survive moments that really should have killed them, and there's so many in this. Running away from a stampede of brontosauruses and having them all piled on top of you, and then them getting up and being absolutely fine. I mean, one or two of the minor characters get killed off in this sequence, but it kind of loses me when I feel no, a character would be dead at this point, and this is most evident really in the treatment of the Ann Darrow character, because I mean, pretty much as soon as she is in the contact with Kong, she'd be dead within minutes. He just from the fact that they do the old thing where she's been sacrificed and Kong appears and takes her and she screams, and the way he takes her is she's got these massive ropes tying her up, and Kong swipes her and the ropes break. Well, the ropes won't break, her arms will be torn off, so straight away. And then he's running through the jungle with her, and you have the T-Rex fight where Kong fights a family of T-Rexes, 3 T-Rexes, and they're falling down these vines, and Anne's coming with them, and there's so there's so many moments where she would have definitely died if this had been real life. And like there's a moment where there's a scene where they try and bond, and she's doing a vaudeville act to amuse him, and you get Andy Serkis again is great in this scene, because he does this thing where he laughs, but he knows that a gorilla's facial muscles are slightly different, so he doesn't have Kong laugh like a human would. He does like that, it bares his teeth the way a gorilla would, but it totally reads as laughing, and then he gets a little bored with her. But there's bits where she's sort of jumping up and trying to show a dominance of him, so she's pushing his face away, and then she does like a black backflip and lands, but it's straight onto stone, and you think, well, how has she not smashed all her ribs doing this stuff? So the lapses in logic there are slightly irritating, but I mean I can't really and there's a sequence where the male characters, they fall into a crevasse, and all these huge insect creatures attack them, and it's a lot of fun, but you get moments where again the lapses in logic come into play. So Adrian Brody gets the big insects crawling all over him, and then Jamie Bell he grabs a Tommy gun and starts shooting the insects off him. But he plays a character, so he's not very adept with the Tommy gun, so he's doing all this. But the bugs are just flying off him. And you think, well, if he's shooting like that, that's like the luckiest shot in the world, you know, that he's being, you know. How is he not cutting Adrian Brody to pieces? Yeah, I understand, you know, Jackson thinking, oh, you know, wouldn't it be cool? We'll have mega monsters versus Tommy guns, and it is cool, but it has to be believable. It has to be work within the logic of the film you're making, and you know, there's sequences in this film where, I mean, Kong must have at least 500 bullets shot at him during the Skull Island sequence, and they just sort of, you know, he shrugs them off as a bit of an irritant. But at the end of the film, spoiler, but he's killed by gunfire. I mean, imagine the biplane, the guns on the biplanes. They probably have stronger bullets. I don't know. I'm not an expert on warfare, aviation, but you think, well, you know, he's already been shot at 500 times so far in this film. Why do these bullets especially kill him? So you know, this is supposed to be the what I like section of the film. You know, I do, on the whole, I like a lot of all of this film really. If you do turn off your brain, you know, I think the film does deliver on the thrills. You know, more so, and the fun you can have with the film. And I'm not just saying that because I want to like the film more than it deserves, really, because you know, at the end of the day, this is a B movie, and it delivers on the sort of B movie fun aspect of it. You know, more so than other films of its type, like you know, something like the Transformers, which you know, again is all mindless action, but and lapses in logic all over the place. But there's a cynical, almost offensive nature to those films that's off-putting, that isn't really there within King Kong. There's a good-natured feel to this film that I'm more than happy to go along with. Character, I mean, the character I mentioned, Jack Black and Andy Serkis. You know, the characters are all pretty well defined, as they are in all. I've said this before. Something that I've noticed in all of Jackson's films, he is quite strong on character, and giving every character their moments and an arc. You know, there's even the sort of the more minor characters like Jamie Bell and Andy Serkis, who plays a dual role as Lumpy the cook, and Kyle Chandler as Bruce Baxter, who's the sort of cheesy old school movie star who goes along to the island to make Carl Denham's films. I'm a Jack Black apologist, as I say. I'm also a runtime apologist for this film, because again, people have said it's overlong. It is 3 hours and 5 minutes. I mean, I didn't think I'd ever see a King Kong remake that would be that long. The extended edition is 3 hours 20 minutes. But you know, I'd argue there's nothing, at least in the theatrical cut, and maybe even in the extended cut actually, that feels unnecessary. I think everything that's in the remake is justified. I know the original got away with telling the same story in 1 hour 45 minutes, but I think everything in the film is there's no padding, you know, and there's one thing I can praise Jackson for in all his films is no matter what the running time, they're never boring. They hold your interest at all points. Even the the multiple endings of the Return of the King. You know, I think that's something that people say, "Oh, it's so boring. It goes on forever." I think it's rubbish. I remember I saw that film more than once in the cinema, and every time I watched those films, everyone was riveted right to the end, right to the moment that Sam comes round the corner at Hobbit End, and it finally says the end. You know, everyone's sort of glued to the seats. So Jackson knows how to hold your interest for extended periods of time, and he's one of the few filmmakers who are skilled enough to do that at such a running time. You know, James Cameron would be another one. So that's what I liked. I'm at half an hour now, and I've still to do my dislikes. So I think I'm going to stop this video and go into a purposeful two-parter where I'll tear the film a new one. No, I won't. So I'll see you in part 2.